All right, guys, in this video, we're going to be going over some very interesting comments that Xbox's Phil Spencer made about PlayStation, seemingly taking some shots at PlayStation. I definitely have some opinions on what is being said here, and I know that a lot of you were asking me to make a dedicated video talking about this, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. So before we get into this, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button to help the video out and show your support. I'd definitely appreciate that. And make sure you hit that subscribe button as well if you are new here to the channel. But let's go over some of these comments that Phil Spencer said recently. So this is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and the article title reads, Xbox's Phil Spencer throws shade at Sony for releasing PC ports years later and charging twice for games. So it says here, Microsoft executive Phil Spencer criticized Sony's PC strategy in a recent press briefing. The Xbox boss specifically took issue with Sony releasing PC ports of its games years after they first launched on PlayStation and charging players twice for them. Right now, we are the only platform shipping games on console, PC, and cloud simultaneously, Spencer said. Others bring console games to PC years later, not only making people buy their hardware up front, but then charging them a second time to play on PC. And of course, all of our games are in our subscription service day one, full cross-platform included. The article continues, Spencer seemingly assumes that those who purchased PC versions of Sony-published titles had previously purchased the same games on PlayStation, hence paying a second time. The bottom line is that we simply put out more top quality games in front of more people than other companies, Spencer continued. Across the Xbox ecosystem, we are now reaching hundreds of millions of people every month, and our total addressable market is going to grow, while others are relatively static. As the Xbox ecosystem grows in both content and total size, it becomes more valuable to both players and our partners. The article concludes, Sony has explicitly said that it currently has no plans to launch PC games simultaneously with PlayStation releases. PlayStation Studios boss Herman Hulst recently said that Sony values PC gamers, but porting games over to PC won't ever come at the expense of building a solid lineup for consoles. So I find it interesting what Phil Spencer's saying here. We're going to go over these two quotes. We're going to start here with Phil obviously taking shots at Sony for the way they're approaching their PlayStation releases on PC. I had to be sure to add this here. I am putting in after the recording, so that's why it seems a little bit abrupt. But something I forgot to mention is that I find it interesting that Phil will take this very pro-consumer approach and talk about how, you know, they're doing this and they're doing that, and Sony is pretty much the bad guy for, you know, taking the approach they are, but he'll say nothing about the fact that they just straight up bought Bethesda and are just yanking all future Bethesda games, you know, many of which do have a legacy to an extent on PlayStation, and they're just not going to be available on PlayStation, future iterations of these games. I just find it interesting that he will take this stance and not say a word about that. So just had to be sure to inject that in here because I think it does kind of add to the point that I'm trying to make. Now look, I understand exactly why Phil Spencer is saying what he's saying here. It's obvious that Xbox is looked at as the more pro-consumer brand, and they're all about bringing Xbox everywhere and putting the gamer at the center and all this stuff. And it all sounds good, but you have to look a little bit deeper than that. You have to kind of understand what's going on here. So what Phil Spencer is doing is trying to make Sony seem like the bad guy for not only making PC gamers wait to play these PlayStation exclusives, whatever exclusives end up going to PC, but they're even worse for charging full price. Now, what he's saying here is all factually correct. This is exactly how Sony is approaching it, but I think people are forgetting something here. Maybe you should take a second to think, why exactly did Microsoft decide to release their games onto PC and then decide to release them day and date on the PC? If you go back to the middle of the Xbox One generation, it was obvious that Microsoft was struggling big time to sell consoles, and so they had to make, a dramatic move. They had to change it up in order to try to make the Xbox brand more profitable. So what did they decide to do? Well, they decided, hey, we're going to release all of our games on PC, and we're also going to do it day and date. And they did that while also releasing Game Pass. So it was a complete shakeup. And now we see, obviously, what that has led to. And I'm not here to say whether that was a good or bad thing, but that is exactly what happened. And that's why they did it. The point is, Phil Spencer made the decision that we're going to put all of our games on PC day and date and put it on the Game Pass and just make it this way because we can't sell consoles the way we wanted to. A lot of people forget that Microsoft's intent with the Xbox One generation was to sell 200 million Xbox One consoles, setting a new record. Obviously, they didn't get anywhere close to that. I don't even know if the Xbox One sold 50 million consoles, let alone getting anywhere close to 200 million. Meanwhile, you look at PlayStation, they were having no problem selling PS4s. They were breaking records. They were, pacing with the PlayStation 2, and it was great. And Sony believed that a big reason for this, and I believe it as well, was their exclusive games, their exclusive lineups, games you could only play on this console. So you can't fault Sony for kind of wanting to stick to the traditional way of doing things, especially when you take into account that this is what has made Sony money. This is the bread and butter of PlayStation. It's not just the IP. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is their games. It is the IP, but they've made the overwhelming majority of their profit off of the money they're making through the PlayStation console. The PlayStation console is seen as a big investment, which is why they lock a lot of this stuff behind the console. They want you to invest in the ecosystem. Chances are, if you buy a $400 or $500 console, you're not just going to buy it to let it sit there and collect dust. No, you're going to buy games for it, a lot of games. You're probably going to buy some subscription services, such as PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, potentially. You're going to be buying microtransactions, DLC, the whole thing. Okay, that's the point of the console. That's why there's such a, high price to pay, because Sony knows that if you're willing to pay $400 or $500 for a console, you're probably going to be dumping a lot of money into the ecosystem, right? If you're able to access the ecosystem for, say, $10 a month, the chances of you wanting to spend more money, maybe, it's not as high. The chance that you're going to want to invest in it is not as high. But anyway, getting back to the whole thing here, Phil Spencer is being very disingenuous with this comment. I understand that he's going to take these shots against Sony because he can, but Sony still cares very much about selling the console. Microsoft simply does not. Microsoft's Xbox strategy does not revolve around the console. As they say, it revolves around the player, and the console is just one part of that. And I get that philosophy. It sounds good on paper, but the reality is Microsoft doesn't really care how many consoles they sell. The more the better, obviously, but that's not the be-all, end-all for them. Sony still cares very much about how many consoles they sell. Again, they're very good at selling consoles. They've been able to break records. They have the best-selling console of all time with the PS2. The PS5 is off to a great start. So they don't want to do anything that could potentially hinder that or get in the way. And the truth is, we don't know how much it is going to get in the way. We don't know how big of a deal it's going to be if Sony were to ever put a PS5 exclusive onto PC. We don't know if that's going to stop people suddenly from buying PS5 consoles. We just don't have the answer to that question. I mean, let me ask you this question. And I would love to ask Phil Spencer this question as well. If you were on track, right? Like let's just assuming I'm talking to Phil Spencer. If you were on track last generation with the Xbox One to actually potentially hit 200 million consoles sold, or even 100 million, 120 million consoles sold with the Xbox One, would you have still made that decision to release your games on PC, especially day and date? Would that have happened? Something tells me probably not. In fact, if that was the case, Don Matrick would still probably be in charge, and Phil Spencer probably never would have took over. But the point is, Sony's in a very different position than Microsoft is, and I just don't think it's fair to kind of paint Sony as the bad guy here, knowing that they're in a very different position. You cannot blame Sony for wanting to kind of tiptoe and inch their way into the PC side of things. They don't want to risk interfering with their console sales. They're going to do it slow and steady. And also, when it comes to them charging full price for their games, look, I'm not saying that I'm happy about that, but then again, I'm not the one buying these games on PC. Uh, I look at it like this. The reason why Sony's charging full price is because they want to extract as much money, obviously, from the PC user base as they can. The way they look at the PC user base is, look, you were not willing to buy our console for these games, you're not going to get a discount. If you want these games, you're going to have to pay full price for them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay, again, this is all about investment. And for those who are not willing to make the big investment into the PlayStation console and make that investment into the ecosystem, at the very least, they want you to make the investment by paying full price for the game to gain access to it. So that's my take on that. Now, to talk about Phil Spencer's second comment here, which is kind of laughable to me. I think some people are taking this comment a little bit differently. He says here, quote, "The bottom line is that we simply put out more top quality games in front of more people than other companies." Okay, now some people were saying that he was saying other companies across the Xbox ecosystem. That doesn't make any sense. Like the two are separated. That's what I'm trying to say here. He's talking about Sony and Nintendo and any other publisher. I gotta tell you, this is also a very disingenuous comment that he's making. I can't believe he said it this way, and I get it. I appreciate the confidence level that Phil is putting out here, but I don't believe Xbox has earned this yet. I don't believe Phil Spencer has earned the right to be able to say top quality games. If you want to say that you simply put out more games in front of more people than other companies, okay, that's fine. But to insinuate that your games are on the same quality level or have been on the same quality level as Sony and Nintendo and other, major third-party publishers that come to mind that are known for putting out top quality games, you're just not. And this is a little bit disturbing to me that he's willing to say this, because what this tells you is that the games that Xbox has been putting out over the past couple of years, Phil Spencer views them as top quality games. And that's concerning to me because I don't think many people agree with that. I mean, yeah, some people are going to point out like Forza Horizon and Gears 5, but like, come on, we're not talking about Halo, Gears, and Forza. Those are the three franchises that Microsoft has relied on way too heavily, and obviously they're all considered top quality, but it's everything outside of that that's where the problem lies. And it's crazy to me that he is saying something like this. Like, Sony has earned this reputation of putting out these top quality games. Same thing with Nintendo, but specifically talking about Sony more recently, you look at Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, you look at Returnal, you look at Demon's Souls, and even before that, Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, and the list goes on and on. These are top quality games. And I don't think that Xbox has released anything recently at all that gets anywhere close to competing. I think the closest thing, the game that gets closest to it is maybe Gears 5. And that's about it. Like, that's all that, pops up in my mind. So it's just kind of crazy to me that he's willing to say something like this. And it's like, if I were an Xbox fan, like, I mean, I am. I still care about Xbox. I'm going to be watching their showcase. I'm still very much interested to see what they're going to be doing. Maybe he felt the need to say this because he's feeling very confident in what they're going to show at E3, and maybe what they will show at E3 will be considered top quality. But, it's insane to me, and I'll kind of put it this way. It's insane to me that he's saying this, because I view it as the literal opposite. I think Sony is the one that's not only putting out an abundant amount of games in a short period of time, but they're all, or the majority of them, are top quality. Xbox has been doing the literal opposite of that. So again, this is where I don't understand where he's getting this from. I guess maybe this is just like a PR line that was like written up for him to say. I hope he doesn't actually believe that, because I can tell you right now, even the most hardcore of Xbox fans have been asking for some time now for Microsoft to really kind of up their game, pun intended, I guess, when it comes to quality levels, right? They need higher quality games. They need more of them. And a lot of fans have been feeling like they've been waiting for a long time. So it's a little bit disturbing to me that Phil Spencer's out here saying this. And I know what some of you are thinking, dude, why are you talking about this? I thought you were a PlayStation-centric channel. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I'll say it again, but I am still interested in what Xbox is doing. They have more potential than they ever have. I want top quality games from them. I want higher quality games from them. I'm hoping that's what we see. That's why I'm going to continue to follow them. I think we might get that. It's anybody's guess, but, you know, I'm willing to give them a chance here with E3. So, yeah, I just wanted to take some time here to kind of talk about this with you guys. I thought that this was really strange, so I'm going to leave it here. You guys can let me know down in the comments below what you think about Phil Spencer's comments. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.